In today's episode, I spoke with Ori Herschmann about election marketing, career evolution, and AI marketing workflows. Ori is the senior growth lead at Dapper Labs and even previously worked on the election campaign for Bloomberg a few years back. So there's a lot to dive into in this episode.
All right, so let's start with this. You have a varied career with different marketing jobs at at various companies, some big, some small. I'm curious if you wouldn't mind just kind of really briefly walking through the different stops in your career and how your job or your skill set has evolved at each stop.
Absolutely. That's an amazing question. So my first rodeo in marketing was for Uber. I was working in lifecycle at the time, which looking back at it was a perfect introduction to marketing, right? At that time and in 2016, 2017 now, working on email marketing, it looked a lot different than it does today, right? The way we handle data, the way we put emails together, the way we think about segmenting. And that job essentially set me up with the knowledge to go to a smaller startup, which was Ribbon Home at the time, a real estate startup, where I was the first marketing hire. But I knew the nuts and bolts of marketing, which is sending emails, putting creatives together, getting things out. And then I started learning the paid experience, right? Because in a startup, you're thrown into a lot of different things. After the startup is when I worked for Bloomberg's presidential campaign. I was doing lifecycle work. And from then I've worked, at a whole slew of shop. I've done e-commerce work. I've worked in consulting for Boston Consulting Group's digital side. I'm most currently at Dapper Labs as well. So I've seen a lot of different industries. What I think is really cool is that a lot of the times the marketing, the channels we think about are the same. But of course, you have different funnels and different times and really different goals that you're looking at. So it's up to the marketers to know how do we use these channels best and what gets us moving forward the best. So.
Along the way, you've learned all these different skill sets at different places. I'm just curious how you decided on what skills to really focus on and which ones to let off to the side a little bit.
Absolutely. Well, I think early in any marketer's career, they're going to be asked to execute a lot. They're going to be asked to put things together and get them out there. That's kind of the rite of passage, right? Unless you go to a small startup and right off the bat, you're asked to think about strategy because there's nobody else thinking about it. You're going to be executing, right? So earlier on in my career, I really learned through all the different channels, really in an integrated approach, how do we put things together and how do we use the tools that marketing teams use? As you keep going up in your career and as you get closer to leadership and management, you're going to be asked to do strategy. And in that strategy work, then you need to start thinking from a high level, how does all of this make sense together and what makes the most sense for the team? But something that we're seeing today with AI is that execution has been made so much easier that we're actually seeing people really close to the very top in strategy capacities being able to execute right like they were earlier in their career when they knew the tools really the best. So it's kind of an interesting time in marketing as a whole right now in that respect.
Yeah, and it's an interesting time in general. So you had mentioned you had worked on the election campaign for Bloomberg, if I'm not mistaken, and back then going totally crazy on paid ads, I'm sure, among other marketing tactics. With the upcoming cycle happening, I'm curious what you think paid ads looks like for the 2024 elections.
Absolutely. I think there's going to be two things happening on the campaign side, similar to what we're seeing happen in a lot of tech companies today. Campaigns are going to need to choose, do we need an army of social media strategists or do we need a few people that know how to utilize these AI tools super well, right? If you think about the makeup of a lot of social media for campaigns, they had a bunch of people on creative, they had a bunch of copywriters, they had a bunch of email marketers. Today, with how easy it is to pump out copy, which for campaigns, that's a pivotal point. If you're a campaign, you're working against deadlines, you're working around the clock, and you're also reacting to what the candidates are happening in real time, right? These are kind of like news and tech organizations combined as one. So now you're going to give these tools that supercharge productivity to all the different campaigns. They're all going to use them, right? Because it's marketing professionals kind of coming in from different industries that work in a lot of these campaigns too. So it's going to be a super, super interesting moment for campaigns.
Do you have any other like predictions or anything you think we'll see marketing wise from the upcoming cycle that maybe wasn't happening last time?
I think what was really cemented last time is going to be the key here, which is video based. advertising. And I think too, with the emergence of Reels, especially in this cycle, as kind of the dominant scrolling feature of consumers today, we're going to see a lot of it. And we already see a lot of political accounts kind of in every direction making Reels, but campaigns are going to really, really tap into that. I think also live speaking, right? All the live spaces and everything going on, we're already seeing candidates tap into there as well. So there's a couple interesting trends I think we're going to see. But from a marketing perspective, I mean, copywriting tools, image editing tools, it's going to be a big moment for some of these AI technologies.
Yeah, AI wasn't really around too much the last. It was a little bit, but now everybody has access. So when you're thinking about the output of copy from either side of the campaign, whoever's running, what do you think that the multiple on output looks like compared to 2020? Do you think we're gonna 10x the amount of ads, the amount of copy we can do?
Absolutely. It's going to be really interesting too, because think of this moment right now. The way that we're searching is changing. We're seeing Google actively with Bard kind of deliver more direct results. We're seeing what ChatGPT and OpenAI are doing as well. So it's going to be interesting how some of the advertising big dogs like Meta and Google continue to regulate these ads because they are highly regulated, right? But I think in terms of output, campaigns are going to be able to take the output that they already have, which is a really, really fast and kind of creative driven optimization process, and they're going to be able to 10 to 20x that, right? I mean, Photoshop today, you can just type what you want to do. So the possibilities are endless for how fast you can create, which is key for campaigns that are creating things on the fly. That content flywheel is a lot of the content strategy of political campaigns right now. So.
What are the examples of pillar pieces of content that are most common for campaigns specifically that end up making the most content for candidates?
Absolutely. Well, what I saw is that campaigns like to think in terms of daily and weekly goals because the election cycle is so ferocious. And, there's debates, there's primaries along the way where you can kind of start seeing the support along the way. So the campaign will focus on a daily beat, right? They'll have a morning, an afternoon, a nighttime kind of edition. They'll be sending out different channels and communications. Really, I mean, the communication cycle is really similar to an e-commerce company at the tail of the winter holiday sales, right? You're blasting and blasting so many different messages, trying to segment your audience in so many different ways. So I think what's going to happen here is you're going to be able to serve a lot more precise messaging across a lot of microsegments. And that is what I think the campaigns are going to really tap into in this cycle specifically. And that's how they think about the content flywheel as a whole. Think about it in shorter spurts. And there's, of course, greater themes that candidates are going to tap into that they're going to base their election off of as well. So.
Last kind of question around this, because it's really interesting, something we don't cover a ton. The amount of output is crazy for candidates, but how do you think through where that content should be hosted, or how it should where it should come from? Because we see all this content, but not all of it comes from the candidate's personal Twitter or the personal Instagram. Sometimes it's coming from all kinds of directions. What is the setup that you kind of think through to get it on multiple places, not just a centralized account?
Absolutely. Well, there's different types of content, right? So when you're working in a campaign, you'll notice that there's, a news beat. So you've got the national distribution. You could take those clips and you could put them on different channels, on different pages that you have, or even your own websites, your mailing serve, right? And then there's the big side of the house, which is going to be even bigger, the social media creation, right? And that content also gets picked up by media as well, a lot of times too. So there's kind of these two kind of content big strongholds that influence a lot of the content that comes out as a whole.
Got it. Makes sense. Let's talk AI, because that's already meshed into what we've talked about with election marketing. Everyone's a little bit scared, I guess, or excited, or a mixture of those things about what AI does to marketing. So for the work that you do right now, especially like email side of things, in 6 months, what's different already in 6 months, and what things is AI going to replace for your job?
Absolutely. I think for the last few years we've been in this kind of slow climb towards this moment that surprisingly caught all of us off guard by the abilities of what we're able to do, from kind of an idea generation of ChatGPT, copy generation of ChatGPT and Jasper, On the AI creative side, tools like Canva for a while have been giving us the ability, right, to be able to self-serve and create more. But now with Adobe Firefly coming in on Photoshop, anybody that didn't understand how to use that tool can come in and can play around with it in a much easier basis. From an email perspective, what I'm seeing is two major things that is interesting a lot of people. For big companies with massive, massive listservs, being able to microsegment and think of campaigns and ideas for those segments and for those audiences used to take a lot of different work. It used to take a segmentation work, right? Used to take copy generation work and idea work. Today, with the tools at our disposal, you could run really targeted microsegments in an incredibly effective way. The second thing is just the creative output, right? In the past, in a lot of big companies, you would either have an email marketer, and some companies would want them to be able to do everything, which is write, design, send out the emails, or you would have a copy team that works with the creative team and kind of a life cycle specialist that ties all of this together inside the email account. Today, a skilled lifecycle person, somebody that understands the tools and how data flows from the back end to the CRM, is going to be able to also take on the copy generation side of it, right? With Copy AI, with Jasper, or with ChatGPT. And then they're going to be able to do essentially the small work of a team as one individual. So skilled lifecycle people, I think, are taking this and taking advantage of this situation and are able to provide even more services for their companies or for their clients or whoever they're working for as a whole.
The difference, if you look a year out and take somebody that uses AI as a marketer versus somebody who doesn't, what do you think the difference between those people is after a year?
It's going to be an incredible difference. This is a tool that I think, and these tools, AI tools, marketers have to embrace it. I think for two reasons. Number one, a lot of organizations are going to be able to test their ideas in a much more rapid cycle and period with how fast creative and copy generation is coming. So you want to be on the front lines of that, right? You want to be the person that is able to help them push that forward. I think the second thing is these tools help make our day to day better at the end of the day. They can help somebody that isn't a great writer write at a high ability. They can help somebody that maybe isn't the most strategic think super strategically. So for marketers shying away from these tools, don't shy away from it. If you learn how to utilize it, it will not replace you. But if you don't learn how to utilize some of these tools, other marketers that do are going to be able to present a better strategic sense and better output, right? I don't think it needs to replace everything people write. I don't think it needs to replace everything that people create, but it's a good thinking partner. It's a good kind of full-time assistant that works with you on whatever you need as a whole. So,
So for you personally, what AI tools are a clear cut part of your workflow now?
as cheesy as it sounds, ChatGPT, I think, as a whole, provides the most kind of holistic round table thing that I need, especially with plugins and how many things you're able to do. And with Zapier, I mean, I am able to take blogs from ChatGPT formatted perfectly into Google Sheets, right? You could have that in mass output. You could do that for any kind of copy that you need as a whole. I think number two, Jasper and Copy AI are both fantastic. And I'm really loving what Photoshop has done as well. So I think Photoshop used to be a tool, especially that, a lot of designers, this was a career path, understanding Photoshop, mastering the tool. And now designers who adapt with these changes are going to even be able to 100x their output. And people like myself who weren't amazing at the tool are able to go in and utilize an amazing design tool much easier. So it's awesome.
That yeah, the Photoshop thing has been crazy to see all of the demonstration around that. Coming back to a point you had made earlier, you suggested around SEO with Bard changing things in Bing from SEO results. What does SEO even look like a year from now or 5 years from now, do you think? Because I think AI is totally shifting it, right?
Absolutely. That's an amazing question. SEO also in the marketing world has been a side of the marketing world that I would say majority of marketers did not understand. You had a lot of SEO trained specialists that understood the algorithm better and I think had assumptions that made more sense. But with the emergence of something like Bard, like I'll explain to you how I use Bard. Bard is great at tying all Google infrastructure together. So for search results with Bard, you can have it help you recommend keywords, long tail and regular keywords. You can ask it to look at search results from YouTube and trends. It connects Google Trends to everything. So it's a great kind of pilot to start a lot of the research that you do. And for any marketer that's been shying away from this, go and play around with it. At the end of the day, you want to get traffic from different keywords, from different searches to your brand's website, no matter what that brand is. And it's never been easier to realize what are people searching for that relates to your brand, right? The one thing that we aren't sure of yet is it's so easy to make content. How are Google and Bing and different search results going to handle the onslaught of volume and content and the fact that anybody now can play the SEO game as a whole? So that's what I think we don't know just yet. But it's never been easier to get into SEO and to understand what you need to do to rank.
Yeah, it almost seems like paid ads may have more spots available up top than even SEO results from what I've seen. So it'll be interesting to see. My last question here for you is non AI. So outside of AI, if you're looking at your Martech stack, is there a particular tool right now that's just saving you a ton of time or a ton of headache that you just can't help but keep going back to?
For me, I would say Jasper and ChatGPT. That's the bread and butter. In terms of other marketing tools that I love, Segment is a fantastic tool. And what I've been using some of the most, not primarily Martech, but an amazing tool is Zapier. I've been getting more and more into that the last couple of years, and the amount of things you can do, the amount of ecosystems you can connect is fascinating. So I would urge a lot of marketers to look at that and to look at automations and how we can help the different companies that you're working at and working for.